Core Concepts for Open Architecture AV Design. Chapter 2. PC and Network Connections. The learning objectives for this chapter are: identify which network types and ports are available on each Composer Series DSP. Use Ethernet ports for programming, real-time control, and monitoring. Connect a Windows PC to a DSP either directly or via a network switch. Understand default addressing for Composer DSPs and necessary settings for connected computers. Describe the control and monitoring options available via wide area network connections. Explain why wide area network connections should not be used for firmware updates. Radius, Prism, and Edge DSPs may be equipped with two separate network interfaces, 10/100 megabit Ethernet for control. Radius NX has 1000 base T dual Ethernet and gigabit Dante, which is optional. Non-Dante versions are also available for installs that do not require digital network audio. The Ethernet ports on the rear panel of the DSPs are used for programming, real-time control, and monitoring. The Dante ports transmit and receive Dante network audio to and from Dante-enabled DSPs and analog I/O expanders. A computer running Windows operating system can be connected directly to a DSP via the Ethernet or control port. A computer can also be connected to an Ethernet port via a network switch. Note that while some Windows virtual machines may be capable of interfacing with Symetrix DSPs through Composer, they are not officially supported. DSP Ethernet ports can be public or private and accessed from a PC. They can also be accessed from a PC via local area networks, or via wide area networks. Ethernet ports can also be accessed from a PC via virtual private network. Symetrix DSPs default to DHCP. When making a direct Ethernet connection for the first time, the programming PC should also be set to DHCP to enable communication. DSPs automatically search for a DHCP server to assign them an IP address. A managed switch can act as a DHCP server, enabling the DSP and the PC to automatically obtain IP addresses and establish communication. If no DHCP server is found, the port reverts to a link local IP address in the 169.254 Class B subnet. Ethernet ports are auto-sensing, thereby eliminating the need for crossover cables. Standard Cat5e or higher cables will suffice. Using Composer, Ethernet ports may be assigned static or dynamic IP addresses. The DSP and the PC must be assigned to the same subnet. This video shows an example of setting a DSP to a static IP address and then back to DHCP, where it will automatically receive an address in the given range. Note that the DSP remains locatable in Composer because of the given static and DHCP IP addresses, but that the PC's network interface is also set in the same range. Dante ports transmit and receive digital audio across standard IP networks. Gigabit switches are recommended for Dante networks due to their low cost and clear advantages in performance and scalability. Composer Series DSPs can be ordered with or without Dante capability. Whether or not a Dante clock card is included, Prism DSPs have a single Dante-labeled port on the rear panel. Radius and Edge have dual Dante-labeled ports that can be programmed for either switched or redundant operation on Dante-enabled units. Please note that ports on non-Dante-enabled units will be indicated when the DSP leaves the factory. Dante clock cards can be purchased and field installed later if necessary. Symetrix Dante ports are auto-sensing, which eliminates the need for crossover cables. Standard Cat5e or higher cables will suffice. Dante ports default to DHCP and automatically search for a managed switch or DHCP server to assign them an IP address. If no DHCP server is found, Dante ports revert to a link local IP address in the 169.254 Class B subnet. Dante IP addresses cannot be assigned or changed using Composer. The best practice is to allow the Dante network itself to automatically assign IP addresses. If required, IP addresses can be changed using Audinate's Dante controller software. This video quickly summarizes the process of setting a static IP to a Dante device. To set the device back to DHCP mode, follow the same steps, but make the selection obtain an IP address automatically. The device must be rebooted for these changes to fully take effect. For uninterrupted Ethernet and Dante communications, firewalls, antivirus software, and spam filters must be disabled. The Prism 4x4 is powered over Ethernet and a PoE Plus injector is supplied with each product. Each can receive power from an injector or from a PoE Plus network switch. All previously discussed IP addressing rules for both direct and Ethernet switch connections apply. Dante-enabled Prism DSPs have a single Dante port which connects a network switch in a star topology to a single point, the switch. This minimizes the number of devices data passes through, avoiding the failure of one device possibly causing an entire network to go down. It is possible to set the Ethernet IP addresses of edge DSPs from their front panels. The LCD displays network information, IP address, subnet, gateway, DHCP status, and other important information. Radius NX and Edge differ from other Symetrix DSPs in that they have internal dual-port Ethernet switches. Radius NX is gigabit, Edge is 10100, which lowers system cost, increases reliability, and often completely eliminates the need for external switches. By making use of the internal switches in Radius and Edge, 10 or fewer DSPs may be daisy-chained. Internal switches may be used only in systems not utilizing the Dante redundancy feature. Redundant Dante applications require the use of external gigabit switches. An Ethernet port from every DSP must be connected to at least one other DSP to form a network and establish communication among all DSPs. When daisy-chaining Dante ports, the primary port of the first device is connected to the secondary port on the next device, and so on. In order to prevent loss of communication when networking multiple DSPs, avoid creating a loopback of either the Ethernet or Dante ports by making sure to never connect the last DSP port back to the first. For installations with more than 10 Radius NX or Edge DSPs, external 10100 and gigabit network switches are required. Ethernet and Dante ports from each DSP are connected in parallel to their respective switches. This can also be achieved with two subnets on a single network or both Control and Dante converged on a single subnet, depending on the specific needs of the project. While Symetrix Dante-enabled DSPs have both Ethernet and Dante ports, Symetrix Dante-enabled analog I/O expanders have Dante ports only. Each expander on a Dante network is associated with a specific DSP and configured through its Dante port, or ports, using Composer. In this example, a Prism DSP is connected to an XIO 4x4 expander. When a Prism DSP is connected to any single-port Dante endpoint, an external PoE switch or injector is required. In this example, the Dante port of a Prism DSP connects directly to the Dante primary port of an XIN12 expander. Because the XIN12 has dual internal Dante ports which is default programmed for switch mode, an external switch is not required. Here, a Radius NX 12x8 is shown connected to XOUT12 and XOUT4 expanders. Because the Radius NX 12x8 and XOUT12 Dante ports have been set to switch mode, there is no need for an external switch as long as you have a PoE injector to power the XOUT4. Control and monitoring of Symetrix DSPs via a wide area network connection allows the use of SymView and ArcWeb for control, and a browser for monitoring. A wide area network connection should never be used to update firmware because if the connection is lost or interrupted, firmware on the DSP can be corrupted. The key points of this chapter are: Radius, Prism, and Edge can be equipped with two separate network interfaces, 10100 megabit Ethernet and gigabit Dante. Radius NX has 1000 base T dual Ethernet. Ethernet ports are used for programming, real-time control, and monitoring. A Windows PC can be connected to an Ethernet port either directly or via a network switch. Symetrix DSPs default to DHCP. When making a direct Ethernet connection for the first time, the programming PC should also be set to DHCP to enable communication. Prism has a single Dante port while Radius and Edge have dual Dante ports. Radius and Edge have internal dual-port 10100 and gigabit switches. Radius NX is gigabit only, which lowers system cost, increases reliability, and can eliminate external switches. Control and monitoring of Symetrix DSPs via a wide area network connection allows the use of SymView and ArcWeb for control and a browser for monitoring. A wide area network connection should never be used to update firmware.